again, let's have a look at the papers now with broadcaster and author Gemma Forte and the journalist and broadcaster Padisha. There they are. Thanks again for joining us. Gemma, do you want to kick off with the Sunday Telegraph? Why do they say that Boris Johnson is frustrated with Rishi Sunak?
So, Boris Johnson has decided that nuclear is the answer. He talks about dashing to nuclear, though, which doesn't seem quite correct. That process would take 10 to 15 years by the time you've got approval and planning. So with this issue, nothing is a quick fix. But this whole article does beg a couple of things. So first of all, the issue itself, what is the right way to go? Arguably, 30 years ago was the right time to start making us completely energy independent, firstly, like America is, but also to look at renewables and to not be reliant on other countries, but especially autocratic regimes for our energy. But of course, the environmental issues too. So it's a huge issue, but also it speaks a little of the tension itself between Sunak and Johnson as well. So it's sort of shaping up to be one of the traditional chancellor feuds. You think Thatcher, Lawson, Blair, Brown, and the tensions between them, especially when I suspect Sunak might have his eye on moving in next door. But all eyes will be on him on Wednesday to see what he comes up with.
That's going to be live on Sky. 11 a.m. We're going to have that. Padisha, did you want to comment on that? I was going to move on to the Express, but do you want to have a quick word on that?
Only one sentence, which is I have a sneaking suspicion that Rishi Sunak really wants to be Chancellor forever and ever and ever, because he just loves doing his maths homework and he just wants to do that job. So there's a weird personality clash between someone like Johnson, who's very bombastic, who's an ambitious public politician, and someone like Rishi Sunak, who's much more conscientious, although he does sweat ambition. So I do agree on that point.
Maths homework on a Sunday morning. You're giving me anxiety, Padisha. Okay, let's talk about this. This is an awful, awful story, and one that keeps coming up about traffickers, human traffickers, targeting people fleeing this war. The Express, page 10, Padisha.
Yes, this is a shocking but not very surprising report to anyone who's worked in war studies or refuge migration and forced migration. There are multiple reports from concerned humanitarian bodies and charities in Ukraine and across all the countries bordering Ukraine, which is all about traffickers, child exploiters, sex traffickers, you name it, targeting vulnerable children. The first area they've gone to is Ukraine's orphanages, where there is concern that 100,000 Ukrainian children from these orphanages, over 90% of whom are not orphans, in fact, so they're there for reasons of poverty and other family issues, are untraceable and untrackable. And not only that, but the traffickers are now also targeting all of those vulnerable refugee children who are at crossing points, front lines, cities, stations. They are traumatized, they're worried, and the traffickers are using genuine Good Samaritans as a kind of cover. So the response to assist the refugee effort, the relief effort in Ukraine, has been extremely laudable, and everyone knows people who have gone over with food and supplies. Now, the traffickers are posing as just these kinds of people, and they are taking advantage of children in particular, but also families, women with children who are looking for safe passage, and they are offering them what the genuine Good Samaritans are offering them. So food, transport, safety, shelter for the night. As you've been reporting all morning, Putin has been very shameless and very overt in targeting civilian areas, art schools, maternity hospitals, residential areas, and traffickers are, as they always do in war, stepping in to take advantage for reasons of exploitation. And I don't need to spell out exactly what might happen to these children.
I remember in the first couple of weeks we spoke to a charity and they said 150 children had just disappeared. They had no idea where they were. It's beyond belief. Let's look at the Telegraph, page 6, and this is about the number of soldiers, Russian soldiers, who've died. Gemma, just talk us through this.
It's another harrowing story that also highlights the senselessness and sort of shame of war. So essentially 2,500 Russian soldiers, their bodies have been transported at night. Obviously, the Kremlin don't want the true number of casualties to be made public, so this is their way of trying to dispose of bodies and to minimize the scrutiny. So it's absolutely tragic. Now, what is so sad is that so many of these soldiers were born in 2003. They are children. They are from poor regions of Russia. They've been conscripted, and they are cannon fodder, really. Of course, they will have been sold an idea as well of why they're going into conflict, which is completely untrue. So the whole thing is horrendous. We don't know the true number of casualties. The Ukraine is saying it could be as high as 15,000. The Russians are reporting something like 400. Who knows what the truth is? But one thing is for sure, Putin made a huge miscalculation. I don't think he thought that the resistance would be so strong and that he'd be losing as many soldiers. And he's lost a huge number of generals as well. So in many ways, it's going terribly badly for him. And then the consequence of that is him upping the ante with the more severe weapons that we touched on earlier.
I'm gonna make an executive decision here, and we're gonna go to the last story that was picked. Badisha, it's yours. The Daily Star. We need something to lighten the mood up a bit here. This is about a haunted hotel. This quote was the best. Ghosts since lockdown are getting braver and braver, and it seems the Adelphi, which is the hotel, is no exception. I'm glad that ghosts knew that it was lockdown. What is this story about, Badisha?
Well, ghosts have been around for a really long time. They probably lived through the Spanish flu and maybe even the medieval plague. So at the Adelphi Hotel in Liverpool, like all of us, they're very frustrated at 2 years of a pandemic, and they're getting even more belligerent. They're yelling at people. They're shaking them out of their beds. They're tripping them up. They're dressing in old-timey clothes and standing in the corridors and staring at people. By old-timey, I think it means like 19th century, not like 1970s flares and 1983 shells.
That is a shame. Badisha, do you believe in ghosts?
I want to believe.
Oh my gosh, I certainly don't. Gemma, do you?
No.
Okay, Badisha and Gemma, have a fantastic Sunday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Still to come here on Sky News Breakfast, we'll have more on the latest reports of a bombing of an art school in Mariupol, where, according to the city council there, 400 residents were said to be sheltering.